The filmmaking career of Robert Redford began with a daring decision. He directed Ordinary People in 1980, which was not only a box office hit but also a turning point in his career. The plot, which was based on Judith Guest's 1976 book, followed a rich family as they struggled following the untimely death of one son and the suicide attempt of another. The picture elicited strong emotions, demonstrating how shame and grief can subtly destroy a family. Redford assembled a group of performers who gave standout performances. In his role, Donald Sutherland portrayed a father attempting to keep his family together. With her portrayal of a frigid and emotionally distant mother, Mary Tyler Moore, who is known for her bright and happy portrayals, stunned audiences. Timothy Hutton, who was barely 20 years old, was the surviving son, and Judd Hirsch played a psychiatrist who was assisting him. His performance earned him the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, setting a record as he is still the youngest winner in that category. The emotional depth and keen attention to detail in Redford's direction won accolades from critics. The movie made $90 million on a $6.2 million budget, demonstrating that viewers were moved by its compelling narrative. At the 53rd Academy Awards in 1981, Ordinary People took home 4 Oscars, including Best Supporting Actor for Hutton, Best Picture, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Redford achieved a feat few in Hollywood had before. He won Best Director for his debut film. The film also took home 5 Golden Globes. Roger Ebert described it as a heartbreaking depiction of an American family, while Gene Siskel named it one of the year's top movies. Redford had demonstrated that he was more than a mere performer. His career had taken a different turn after he got behind the camera, but he had more in mind than just creating amazing movies. His goal was to transform the industry itself. The Sundance Film Festival was founded as a result of this goal. He started his independent filmmaking career in 1981 by establishing the Sundance Institute. He aimed to provide a space for up-and-coming filmmakers to hone their skills free from the demands of Hollywood production companies. The Institute introduced Sundance Labs, a program that allowed novice filmmakers to test out their scripts in the same year and seek advice from knowledgeable mentors. The festival, which had been in existence since 1978 under the name Utah U.S. Film Festival, had a hard time getting noticed. When Redford took over in 1985, he changed the name to the Sundance Film Festival and relocated it to Park City, Utah. Everything changed after that choice. For independent films that might not have otherwise found a home, Sundance turned become a platform. Shortly after, the festival began to have an effect. After winning the festival's top prize in 1989, Steven Soderbergh's Sex, Lies and Videotape went on to become a critical and financial success. It demonstrated the viability of independent films outside of the Hollywood system. Quentin Tarantino's career began in 1992 when his film Reservoir Dogs made its Sundance debut. Kevin Smith's Clerks became another huge hit in 1994. By the late 1990s, Sundance had evolved into more than a festival. It has developed into America's hub for independent filmmaking. With thousands of visitors from all over the world and hundreds of films screened annually, it is currently the biggest independent film festival in the United States. Redford's objective was always more than simply showing off movies. He sought to alter the way the film industry perceived indie filmmakers. He established initiatives that provided mentorship, funding, and workshops through the Sundance Institute to make sure that fresh perspectives could continue to influence the direction of cinema. Redford's interest was nature, not just movies. He purchased property in Utah's Provo Canyon in 1969 with an idea that combined pleasure, conservation, and art. Sundance, he called it. Redford had no interest in converting the area into a commercial resort, despite developers viewing it as an economic opportunity due to his well-known role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He instead prioritized environmental preservation and sustainability. The life of Robert Redford has been influenced by love, grief, and an insatiable desire to create. It was a movie-like beginning to his first marriage to Lola Van Wagenen. At the age of 21, he and Lola, a young historian who had left college to be with him, eloped to Las Vegas in 1958. They had to rent a car for their wedding vacation because they only had about $300 between them. That didn't matter, though. They were constructing for the future, and they had faith in one another. When their first child, Scott Anthony Redford, was born in September 1959, that future took a terrible turn. He succumbed to sudden infant death syndrome about 2 months later. For years, Redford held himself responsible for the disease, which was hardly recognized at the time. The following morning, he discovered his kid dead in his cot, despite having bid him goodnight with a kiss. He would always remember that moment. It was a scar that never healed, as he subsequently described it. A tragic reminder of what they had lost, Scott was laid to rest close to their Provo, Utah, home. Redford's life was still impacted by loss, despite their efforts to go on. He and Lola went on to have 3 more children before another catastrophe occurred in 2020. For decades, their son Jamie Redford, born in May 1962, had struggled with severe health problems. Because of primary sclerosing cholangitis, an uncommon autoimmune liver disease. Despite receiving 2 liver transplants in 1993, his condition remained precarious. In spite of this, he led a fulfilling life as an activist and filmmaker, along with his father, founded the Redford Center to combat climate change via narrative. Bile duct carcinoma claimed his life in October 2020 at the age of 58. For Redford, who had previously lost twin siblings soon after birth, it was yet another devastating loss. Despite everything, Redford used his suffering to create some of his most impactful performances to date. He played Roy Hobbs in The Natural in 1984, a baseball player whose career is destroyed by tragedy before he makes a historic return. After receiving 4 Oscar nominations, the movie quickly became a classic. The part was memorable because of Redford's ability to play both tenderness and strength. Within a year, Out of Africa elevated his career to a new level. In a romantic drama based on Karen Blixen's memoir, he portrayed Dennis Finch-Hatton, a free-spirited hunter, alongside Meryl Streep. The 1985 release took home 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. The chemistry between Redford and Streep was electrifying, and his portrayal of a man divided between independence and love gave a story full of heartbreak and beauty more nuance. Redford demonstrated that he was still capable of carrying a movie nearly entirely by himself at the age of 77, decades later. He portrayed a shipwrecked sailor in the survival drama All Is Lost, which came out in 2013. There wasn't much conversation in the movie, depending only on his acting to convey the narrative. With just his facial expressions and body language, he conveyed dread, resolve, and tiredness. He demonstrated that he could still command the screen like few others in his late 70s with what critics dubbed one of his best performances to date. This was followed by an unexpected shift. In 2014, Redford made his debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Captain America: The Winter Soldiers. Alexander Pierce. For a hero-loving actor, his portrayal as a senior S.H.I.E.L.D. member surreptitiously working for Hydra was a startling turn of events. His cool-headed yet vicious acting makes him a terrifying antagonist, giving the movie's themes of corruption and power more nuance. In Avengers, he made a brief but noteworthy reappearance. 2019, Endgame. It was one of his last appearances on screen. After more than 60 years in the movie business, Redford made the decision to retire from performing in 2018. He played Forrest Tucker, a real-life career criminal who robbed banks and made several escapes from prison, in The Old Man and the Gun, his last major performance. He gave the character charisma and vitality even at the age of 81, which made Tucker's story seem less like a criminal spree and more like an adventure. Shortly after the movie's premiere, Redford formally announced his retirement and declared that this would be his final part. When Robert Redford initially read the script for The Way We Were, he had no desire to star. Hubble Gardner, his role, seemed superficial because the tale was overly centered on Barbra Streisand's character, Katie Morosky. "Who is this guy?" he asked director Sidney Pollack, claiming the character lacked substance. What is the object of his desire? He didn't want to portray a one-dimensional romantic lead, especially in a movie that looked to be centered around Streisand. Pollack remained steadfast. He added depth and purpose to Hubble's character by bringing in authors David Rayfield and Alvin Sargent. Redford was worried even at that time. On set, he was concerned about Streisand's assertive nature. She might take over the show and overshadow his performance, he feared. On the film, he asked Pollack if she would sing on the commercial. He wished to ensure that the movie remained centered on the drama instead of serving as a musical showcase for Streisand. Streisand persisted in her desire to work with Redford as her co-star. She once got a telegram with the words Barbara Redford in it while she was in Africa filming Up the Sandbox. That was Pollack's way of letting her know Redford had consented to the movie at last. Even after filming began in 1972, the tension persisted. It was challenging for Streisand to emotionally connect with Redford because he stayed aloof. She later acknowledged that, despite his professionalism, he was difficult to get close to. Their performances might have benefited from that distance. Although their characters were in love, they were always battling their differences. And the conflict on television seemed genuine. When The Way We Were debuted in 1973, it was a huge hit. 2 Academy Awards were given to the movie, and the title track became one of Streisand's most well-known recordings. However, despite their on-screen connection, Redford and Streisand never collaborated again. He valued her skill, and she appreciated his professionalism. But their relationship was too complex. Robert Redford was the golden boy of Hollywood. Talented, attractive, and adored by all. He was unable to tolerate one co-star, though. He made sure they never collaborated again, dubbed her role shallow, and forbade her from kissing her in one scene. The director was powerless to alleviate the strain. We are revealing to fans all the sloppy details of the feud they attempted to conceal. On August 18, 1936, Robert Redford was born in Santa Monica, California, as Charles Robert Redford Jr. As an accountant for Standard Oil, his father, Charles Robert Redford Sr., put in a lot of overtime. Raising him at home, his mother, Martha Woodruff Redford, surrounded the house with books and stories. From a young age, Redford's creative side was influenced by her love of reading and movies. His ancestry started with his great-great-grandfather, who emigrated to the United States from England in 1849, and had Irish, Scottish, and English ancestry. Redford grew up mostly in Van Nuys, California, after the family relocated there. He referred to it as a sea of cultural sludge at one point. He found it difficult to blend in and frequently acted out in this uninspired and boring environment. However, he discovered something distinct outside the suburbs. He traveled frequently to Texas to see his mother's family. He spent time in natural settings with open spaces. As a result of his travels, he developed a lifelong passion for the environment. His father was more concerned with his job and was rigorous and pragmatic, instead of spending time with his son. Although Redford admired him, they never had a close relationship. The person who supported him the most, however, was his mother. She urged him to investigate movies, literature, and the arts. However, tragedy struck when Redford was 18 in 1954. His mother passed away from septicemia, an unexpected and fatal disease. At a time when he was already having trouble figuring out his direction, her death struck him deeply and left him adrift. His strength had never been academics. He didn't care much about his studies at Van Nuys High School. On the field, he felt completely at home, but in the classroom, he felt uncomfortable. He excelled in tennis and football and was a gifted athlete. He even played tennis with Pancho Gonzalez, who was then a budding talent. After graduating, his baseball prowess earned him a scholarship to the University of Colorado Boulder. In 1954, it was a new beginning, an opportunity to establish himself. Although college offered him freedom, he immersed himself into partying rather than studying or playing baseball. As a result of his drinking and lack of responsibility, he developed a reputation for not taking things seriously. He quickly lost the scholarship that had provided him with this opportunity. 18 months later, he was expelled. In the past, he had encountered difficulties. Redford was arrested at the age of 16 for petty theft after he was discovered stealing jewels with a group of children. It served as a wake-up call, but the accusations were finally withdrawn. Like he didn't fit into the life that was planned for him, he had always been restless. He would go on to play characters who defied authority and aimed for greater things as a result of his rebellious temperament. Losing both his mother and his scholarship at the same time threw him into a deep depression. Uncertain of his future, he made the decision to depart. In pursuit of purpose, he journeyed across Europe. As a young artist looking for purpose, Robert Redford embarked on a voyage across Europe in 1956. After dropping out of the University of Colorado, he was dealing with his mother's death. To remake himself, Paris seemed like the ideal location. Living on bread and cheese, he studied fine art and immersed himself in bohemian culture while living frugally. He drew for hours in cafes, strolled the streets, and participated in political debates with radical student organizations. Although it was an exhilarating time, something didn't seem quite right. His work began to be questioned as he studied the great artists of the past. He became aware that his paintings lacked uniqueness. He searched far and wide but was unable to find a distinctive style that made him stand out. He felt the weight of this realization. His goal was to become an artist, and he had got this far. In his heart, though, he felt that he was not contributing anything novel. In 1957, while traveling through Italy with a companion, that doubt remained with him. They were impoverished and had to rely on their gut feelings to survive. His resourcefulness was compelled by the encounter. This provided him with a fresh outlook on life. He studied set design at Brooklyn's Pratt Institute after returning to the United States later that year. It felt more pragmatic, but it was still tied to art. Then the unexpected occurred. He felt as though he had finally found his calling when he enrolled in an acting class. He found it difficult to be creative when painting, but acting came easily to him. It was storytelling all over again. He wasn't looking for a distinctive look, though, this time. He was just giving characters life. A brave decision was made by him in 1959. He left Pratt to attend New York City's American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Every year, more than 300 students were admitted to this prestigious school, but only roughly 100 advanced past the first round. Despite the rigorous training, Redford flourished. He played parts in plays such as Seagull, and was commended for his sincerity and profundity. Due to financial constraints, he took on odd occupations to make ends meet, yet nothing could stop him from performing. He was at last able to connect with something. His early acting career did, however, have its share of oddities. His first professional work was on a game show in the late 1950s. Instead of the $75 that was due to him, he received a fishing rod. To a struggling New York actor, that was not exactly good news. It felt like a joke at the moment. In a hilarious turn of events, however, he would go on to helm the fly fishing-themed movie A River Runs Through It years later. A brief but appropriate segment of his experience emerged from what had initially appeared to be a frustrating occasion. The first significant move he took was watching television. He made an appearance on Alfred Hitchcock Presents in 1961. The program is renowned for its tense and gloomy tales. He then got a part in the Twilight Zone episode Nothing in the Dark in 1962. He performed the role of Mr. Death, a serene, even-kind character who helps an old woman confront her fear of passing away. His angelic beauty led director Lamont Johnson to cast him, which further added to the character's eerie quality. One of the series' most notable episodes was this one. Robert Redford shone with his performance that he could manage challenging parts. Barefoot in the Park, a romantic comedy directed by Neil Simon, was Robert Redford's Broadway debut. In contrast to Elizabeth Ashley's free-spirited character Corey, Redford played Paul Bratter, a conservative young lawyer, in the play's October 23, 1963, debut. Mike Nichols directed the production, which was a great success, running for 1,530 shows. At the time, it was the 10th longest non-musical play in Broadway history and Neil Simon's longest-running hit. Redford's performance garnered attention. It was obvious that he was a budding sensation because of his charisma, witty timing, and easy stage presence. However, Redford was already in the movie business before Broadway. He played Private Roy Loomis in the low-budget war thriller War Hunt in 1962, which was his first film role. Despite not being well known, the film ended up being more significant than it first appeared to be. Redford met Sidney Pollack, a director who would go on to have a significant impact on his career on set. In the movies Jeremiah Johnson, 1972, and Out of Africa, 1985, which helped establish Redford as one of Hollywood's biggest actors, Pollack directed him. He wasn't made famous by War Hunt, but it introduced him to the appropriate people and provided him with his first practical film set experience. It was the ideal moment for him to switch from theater to film. Hollywood wanted him after Barefoot in the Park became a hit. He played the same part in the 1967 movie adaptation, this time co-starring with Jane Fonda. The film was a success, bringing in $30 million globally on a $2 million investment. Redford was shown to be more than just a theater actor. Audiences adored him because he exuded the same charm on screen. Then his life-altering role arrived. He played the role of Sundance, the savage shooter, opposite Paul Newman's character Butch Cassidy in the 1969 film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. The picture, which was scripted by William Goldman and directed by George Roy Hill, combined humor, action, and camaraderie to revolutionize the Western genre. Earned almost $100 million upon its premiere on September 24, 1969, making it the highest-grossing film of the year. The movie will never be forgotten because of Redford and Newman's chemistry. They are regarded as one of the most legendary cinematic duos due to their easygoing charm, easy banter, and impeccable comedic timing. The film became legendary due to scenes like the renowned final shootout or their unsuccessful attempts to speak Spanish while fleeing to Bolivia. One of its 4 Academy Awards was for Best Original Screenplay, which went to Goldman. Redford, however, nearly missed out on the part. Originally assigned to the Sundance role, Steve McQueen left because of a contract issue. Redford replaced him, and his career was permanently altered. His friendship with Newman lasted a lifetime, and the film made him a Hollywood star. The Sting, another huge smash that took home 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, brought the two back together in 1973. Despite his increasing notoriety, Redford was picky about his roles. Mike Nichols, the director of The Graduate, wanted him to play Benjamin Braddock, but he declined. However, Nichols wasn't sure. Redford, in his opinion, exuded too much confidence and self-assurance to portray a clumsy, insecure college graduate. Nichols asked Redford if he had ever experienced romantic or social difficulties, and Redford didn't even comprehend the question. Nichols only needed that evidence. Dustin Hoffman was cast in his place, and the movie went on to become a classic. Additionally, Redford turned down a part in Mike Nichols' Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. Both films received positive reviews and took home several Academy Awards. However, Redford had no regrets about his choices. He desired challenging parts rather than ones that only brought him fame. He was not interested in being categorized as just another Hollywood star. One of the pivotal moments in Robert Redford's career was his performance in The Sting in 1973. George Royhill directed the movie, which reunited him with Paul Newman following their 1969 breakthrough in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Redford portrayed Johnny Hooker this time, a teenage con artist attempting to outsmart Doyle Lonnegan, a formidable crime boss. In his portrayal of Lonnegan, Robert Shaw struck the ideal mix between charm and suspense. Redford gave a nimble, assured, and enthusiastic performance. He was nominated for his first and only Academy Award for Best Actor. Jack Lemmon's 1973 film Save the Tiger won the Oscar. But there was no denying Redford's influence. The movie itself was an enormous hit. A substantial return on its $5.5 million budget, it earned nearly $159 million at the box office. When inflation is taken into account, it still ranks among the top 20 highest-grossing movies of all time and was the highest-grossing movie of 1974. Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Original Screenplay were among the 7 Oscars that The Sting took home at the 46th Academy Awards. By adapting Scott Joplin's timeless songs, Marvin Hamlish's film also contributed to the resurgence of ragtime music. And further highlight was Redford and Newman's chemistry together, solidifying their status as one of the most recognizable pairs in film history. In addition, the movie created history by making Julia Phillips the first female Oscar winner for Best Picture. Redford's acting gained depth, and The Sting demonstrated his ability to direct a big-budget movie. It demonstrated that he was not merely a Hollywood celebrity. He was a serious performer who had enduring appeal. It was during this time that Redford's versatility was further demonstrated. He starred in 3 movies from 1972 to 1976 that showed off various aspects of his skill. He and Barbra Streisand co-starred in the romance drama The Way We Were in 1973. He portrayed Hubble Gardner, a writer whose romance with Katie Morosky, played by Streisand, was doomed from the beginning due to their intense political views. The movie was the 5th highest-grossing film of 1973, with $50 million at the box office. Its last sequence outside the Plaza Hotel in New York turned become one of the most iconic scenes in movie history. Jeremiah Johnson was a different person in 1972. It was directed by Sidney Pollack and told the tale of a lone mountain man who made it through the hostile environment. In order to make the character come to life, Redford mostly used body language and facial emotions throughout the movie. The picture, which earned $44.7 million and was one of the year's highest-grossing films, was filmed in Utah's breathtaking scenery. It demonstrated that Redford could handle a movie without the help of speech or a lot of action. Then came 1970's All the President's Men, a political thriller that is now regarded as one of the most significant journalism-related movies. In the role of Dustin Hoffman as Carl Bernstein, one of the Washington Post reporters who discovered the Watergate affair, Redford played Bob Woodward. The movie was nominated for 8 Academy Awards and took home 4 of them. It was produced by Redford's business, Wildwood Enterprises, demonstrating his impact behind the camera as well. It was more than just a success, it determined the future of investigative journalism in movies for many years. Redford was more than just one of the most well-liked actors in Hollywood in the 1970s. He was among the most prosperous at the box office as well. When inflation is taken into account, his films made over $3 billion between 1973 and 1976. Among the top 10 highest-grossing pictures of 1974 alone were 3 Redford features, The Sting, The Great Gatsby, and a re-release of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Actor Bing Crosby last controlled the box office in such manner in 1946. Redford had emerged as the symbol of the new Hollywood period, striking a balance between creative aspirations and financial success. However, his partnerships weren't always as seamless as they appeared on film. Jane Fonda, who co-starred with Redford in 4 movies, disclosed that it wasn't always simple to work with him. Although their chemistry was evident in films like The Electric Horseman, 1979, and Barefoot in the Park, 1967, things were more challenging behind the scenes. It was later revealed by Fonda that Redford did not enjoy filming kissing moments. On set, he could also be grumpy, which occasionally made her feel as though she was doing something wrong. It dawned on her over time that he may have had unresolved problems with women. She continued to admire him, though. Their on-screen relationship was unique because, as she described it, he was both charming and aloof. Years later, at the Cannes Film Festival, Fonda reminisced about their collaboration. She acknowledged that, despite the complexity of their real-life relationship, she had always been in love with him professionally. Their collaboration served as evidence that the final cut does not always reflect what viewers perceive off-screen.